Hello again. I'm coming at you with our third installment, part 3 of our series, The Christian and Government, from Romans 13, 1 through 7. And today, I was just kind of, reading through news stories and everything. Of course, the issue of homosexuality and specifically the definition of marriage is huge right now in American politics because of a couple of different cases being at the Supreme Court. And it just kind of dawned on me that while this passage, if we just sort of sit down and you were to read the 16 chapters of Romans, there's definitely some statements in Romans 13, 1 through 7 that are sort of surprising and jump off the page and, wow, that's quite a statement. But it seems like a somewhat obscure passage, It's 7 verses out of the all 16 chapters. It just sort of seems like an isolated section, kind of maybe relevant to us, maybe not, but I'm just here to tell you that Romans 13, 1 through 7 is going to be increasingly, for us in America, for those of you that are watching this from America, is going to be a increasingly important section, because how we relate to the government as our country becomes more and more hostile to Christianity. We're going to have to answer these questions. You constantly hear people saying, we need to stand up for what is right. We need to stand up for what is right? You've all, very common phrase within American evangelicalism, especially those that are affiliated with the right in terms of politics. Conservatives, Republicans, Libertarians, those types. This is going to be increasingly important because you constantly hear, stand up for what is right, stand up for what is right, and everybody's sort of bemoaning the moral failure and slide of our country. And indeed it is. Indeed we are in a moral freefall. There's no doubt about that. I don't deny that. But here's why I would assert that Romans 13, 1 through 7 is so important. All you ever hear is, within that phrase, stand up for what is right, all you ever hear is the second half, the second phrase there, what is right. You hear people want to talk about what is right, but what does it mean to stand up? Because that's a very important question. That's a practical question, as J. Vernon McGee liked to say. That's where the rubber hits the road. What does it look like to stand up for what is right? And what's going to happen? Let's just take this issue that's front and center in American politics right now, the issue of homosexual marriage. What's it going to look like if homosexual marriage is ordained by the state? How is that going to affect us, the church? What do we do with that? What happens if, and it will, what happens if the homosexual marriage issue eventually does what happened in the 1960s with ethnic issues and racial issues, when it becomes a hate crime to discriminate based on sexual on sexual preference or sexual identity. Now, just me personally, I should just add this as a note, but I am not for discrimination based on sexuality in terms of employment and other things. What I'm really meaning is religious organizations, specifically churches. What happens if the state says that you, as an evangelical pastor, you must marry people. You must marry a homosexual couple, a same-sex couple that wants to go to you to get married. What happens then? Eventually all the religious exemptions and stuff, that's going to go away. And so we need to know, not only everybody knows that we need to stand up for what is right, but we need to know, what does that standing up look like? Does that look like revolt and revolution? Does that look like civil disobedience? Does that look like violent disobedience? Does that entail coup d'etats and political overthrows and what does it mean? What does it look like? And so not only do we need to know what is right, but we need to know, what does it look like to stand up, and what's the appropriate way for the Christian to react when his or her government becomes hostile to them and their faith. And so those are important questions that we need to figure out now. When you're in the middle of it and and the time has come to make a decision. Just using the example of the pastor being forced to marry a same-sex couple, if you're, if that's going to result in, if a refusal to do so is going to result in you being arrested for it, well, you need to know ahead of time if that is what God would have you to do. It's when the time comes is not the time to sort of be working out the theology on it. The time is now to do that, and so that's what this series is mostly all about. There's plenty of people talking about what is right and what is wrong. That's pretty simple stuff. I'm not so much here to do that. I'm here to talk about what does it look like to stand up for it. And so that's sort of just some thoughts on the overall series, The Christian and Government. Today, though, I want to talk about government, the common grace of government. And this is a message specifically, I want to sort of specifically address this at people that are active in politics. This is addressed at the Republicans. This is addressed at the people that identify themselves as patriotic American Christians. This is addressed at the libertarians. This is addressed at the, like I said, the patriots, and people that are, and rightfully so. I agree with them when they say that, gosh, our government and where's it going and what's happened and the moral slides and ethic failures and moral failure. I'm right there with them on all that stuff. But here's the thing: government in and of itself is an enormous gift from God. Just two phrases from this passage. Romans 13 verse 1, the ending sentence says, "The authorities that exist have been established by God." So not only the specific government, but government in general, the very idea of government. That's not only is that a God-ordained idea, but it's God's idea. And then a quick little sentence from verse 4, "For he is God's servant to do you good." Other translations translated, "He's God's servant for your good." And so just two quick points. The very idea of government is God's idea, and He ordained it, and it exists for our good. And I just want to kind of revel in that today. The very fact that you have a government that you live under is a blessing from God. The most awful thing, the scariest thing that you could be in is anarchy. It's an absolute lack of any kind of government. We have seen like glimpses of that here in North America on a lot of the border cities on the Mexico side of our southern border. Some of these towns that are just absolutely ruled by the drug lords, and they're just essentially gangs, and the police are helpless. The national police are helpless. They're just helpless. And you put a sheriff in town or a police chief in town, and the gangs kill him. Well, I mean, that day, within 6 hours of him being, officially put into office. And I've read news stories, them interviewing people down in some of these poor people that live in some of these cities where the gangs just rule everything, and they say that that we're just defenseless. The criminals are better organized and better equipped than the army even is. And imagine that. Imagine no government. Imagine no 911. Imagine no police and no firemen and no National Guard and just only gangs. Just mob rule. And that's it. Whoever has the greatest force wins, and it's just mobs taking and pillaging and looting and stealing and raping and doing whatever they want, and you are absolutely defenseless. Government is an astounding gift, and it's an astounding gift to live in America. And right now, I just within the context of this video, I just want you to feel the common grace. Common grace just means something that God has given to all humanity, not just the elect, but not just the saved, but the lost as well. It's God causes the sun to shine on the good and the bad. He causes the rain to fall on the good and the bad. He gives air for everybody to breathe. There's many things that are the common grace of God, and government is one of those things. And I want you to see government as a dam against all the evil in the world, so that it doesn't just just flood the world with rapine violence, which we would be absolutely helpless against, because without government, that's exactly what we would be. And oftentimes in the world, we see that a lot of totalitarian regimes emerged out of anarchy, because the people will pledge their allegiance, and they will gladly give the power to any tyrant if he will just crack down on the gangs. And so we've seen that in a lot of places in the world. And my authoritative command to you today, and again, this is especially those associated with right-wing politics, and you know who you are. I don't need to explain it again. I agree with everything that you're complaining about and all the things that you're pointing out that's wrong with our government today, especially the administration that's in the White House right now. I agree with you, but do not allow all that disagreement and all that dissent to teach your kids to hate the authorities. You need to teach your kids that authority, that the existence of authority, the existence of governing authority is a gift from God, and you and your children and your families, you would not want to experience the devastating effects of being in a place where there is literally no governing authorities. That's the worst places on planet Earth. So for all of government's problems, and for your desire to change it and to sort of go back to the principles that we were founded on and all that stuff, I get in that. I totally get that. But you and we and me, we all need to get on our faces occasionally and just thank God for our government, that we have a government to govern us, that we don't live in some of the places in the world where there is none, and it's mob rule. That is a gift from God, and our government, with all its problems, does a very good job, comparatively speaking, to all the other governments in the world, to punishing bad and rewarding good. And I just want you to kind of revel, I guess, meditate on, just sort of live in the common grace of God, that we live in a place where there is a government, and God says that is established by Him, and that He's given it to us for our good.